T-minus 30 seconds. T-minus 20 seconds. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
You are now tapped into the coolest reptile podcast in the world. Welcome to the Trap Talk Reptile Podcast. I'm your boy MJ. If this is your first time tapping in, what is good? Do your boy a favor. You're bald. Yeah, I'm bald. In case you don't know, my head is shaved and I'm ready. But do your boy a favor. This is your first time tapping in. Smash that like button, hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell. That way you're on top of every single pot. Man, I do got to get used to this. This does look, now I kind of feel for you guys. Now that you guys are looking at me, I'm like, damn, is that MJ's head? Yeah, that's MJ's head. But anyways, guys, if you're into keeping reptiles or just simply admiring them, interested as far as how to become more knowledgeable behind reptiles. Anyways, dude, if you just love reptiles, this is the podcast to be subscribing to. I'm telling you right now, anything relevant, anything that is worthwhile in the reptile industry comes to this channel. Okay, we have a great episode. Tyler Rugge. I'm really excited to be sitting down with Tyler. He's been hitting some other podcasts lately. I'm upset about that. We'll talk about Tyler about that here in a minute. Just kidding. No, but really, I'm excited to sit down with somebody who is an influence to the social media side of things because it's not easy to do both, you know. But anyways, reptiles is my passion. If that's your passion, let's learn together. It's going to be an awesome time tonight. Drop a comment. Let me know what you like best out of each podcast. Let me know what you're learning. Feedback is welcome. Definitely feedback is welcome. But yeah, man, let's go. Be active. If you're in the live chats, the early birds, I salute you. Shout out to the early birds. If you think that tonight's episode is worthy of any super chats in the live chats, drop a super chat. If you have a question for me or Tyler or a topic to discuss, don't be shy with those super chats, man. Super chats get priority over anything. And yeah, appreciate all the love and support. If you're looking for exclusive content, if you'd like to support what I do, or if you just want to get more behind the scenes, you want to meet over 160 trappers, aka real deal reptile keepers, go down to the link in the description below. Very, very top of the description below, you're going to find a link to the Trap Talk Patreon family. Come join the Patreon family. Coolest Patreon family in the world. As soon as you join the Patreon family, you get a link to the Discord, taps you with over 165 trappers. We talk about all sorts of reptiles, so many different channels, either stuff about life, man, trappers that cook, trappers that stay fit, you name it, man. We stay busy in the Discord. And I want to say shout out to all my Patreon members who keep the Discord popping. You guys are awesome. I just love to see the interaction. I just love seeing the growth, plain and simple, man. Anaheim's right around the corner. Another good time to meet with everybody. But either way, guys, come join the Trap Talk Patreon family if you're really about this. And come meet all the trappers, man. It's going to be a good time. And yeah, go follow me on Instagram as well. TrapTalkGod619. If you really want to see what I have working as far as my own projects and what I'm really into, really active on Instagram. TrapTalkGod619. And then follow the podcast Instagram page as well. It's Trap Talk Reptile Podcast. Shout out to Facebook. If you're on Facebook, show your boy some love. Go like and follow me on Facebook, please. If you're hearing this right now and you still happen to have Facebook, type in Trap Talk Reptile Podcast. Give your boy a like and a follow. And I'll be doing some active stuff on Facebook as well. But either way, man, wherever you listen to this podcast at, thank you so much. You know, especially the audio platforms, the major audio platforms, Apple, Spotify, Buzzsprout, etc. Don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe. But really, wherever you listen to this at, thank you so much. It really means a lot. Been having a good time doing this podcast. And it's just beginning. I'm not going to lie, man. We're going on 4 years, but really, we're just getting started. I got so many plans. And anyways, big things popping. Just want to let you know that tonight's episode is brought to you by my boy Doug over at Ridiculous RHACS. His lychee game is ridiculous. His love for the geckos is ridiculous. I feel like his involvement in the reptile industry is ridiculous in a good way. My boy Doug. Go give him a follow on Instagram. Go see what he's all about. It's MJ certified right here. This fool is the real deal Holyfield. Thank you for your support, Doug. Seriously, you're my only gecko sponsor, and that's a huge flex. Appreciate you. I also want to say that tonight's episode is brought to you by my quail hookup, the plug over in Florida, my homie Blake over at Blake Exotic Animal Ranch. Bear. I like those abbreviations. That's pretty sick. But listen, if you are highly excited to be implementing quail as a diet to your reptile collection, then you need to go over to Blake's Exotic Animal Ranch and Blake's Exotic Animal Feeders, which is his quail game, okay, on Instagram, and go order through my boy Blake. He has the freshest quail in the game, and I want to say that at least 30%, as of right now, 30% of my collection has not fully switched over to quail, but it's slowly getting there, man. And I'm seeing great results. Usually, I'm not gonna lie, I've always had the fear of feeding birds to certain snakes and seeing what comes out. Some have a problem digesting it, but I'm not gonna lie, man. Ever since I've gotten quail from Blake, they fully come out how they should and not wet. I don't know. I'm just saying. Shout out to the sponsors tonight. You guys are awesome. All my sponsors are great, but especially those two because they're owning tonight's episode and they're great. Thank you so much for your love and support. Who's here? Early Birds. What's cracking? We're gonna have a good episode tonight. Morph Valley Reptiles. Trap Talk Patreon member, what's good? Justin Campbell in the building, Trap Talk Patreon member, what's good? Sunshine State Sulphurs, homie West, Trap Talk Patreon member, what's good? Julio Fulio, Trap Talk Patreon member, what's good? Wise Guys, forget about it, what's good? Joe DeStefano, Trap Talk Patreon member, what's good? 1776 Exotics, OG, Trap Talk Patreon member all day, every day. Maddie Smith, I know this girl. She's another one of my, she's just remember this name, Maddie Smith. That's all I got to say, okay? Thank you so much, Maddie, for being here. And I'm sure she'll come up in tonight's podcast for sure. Aurora Exotics, what is good? Trap Talk Patreon member all day, every day. Josh Fenelon, Trap Talk Patreon member with a freshly new arrival into his collection. It's a super dwarf reticulated python produced by me, collaborated with my boy Eric Lee. Go see what that's all about. JK Labs on Instagram. Thank you for your love and support. I hope you guys enjoy that snake, especially you, Audrey. That's your snake. Joshua Stouffer in the building. What's up, player? Thanks for being here. D&K Reptiles. Derek, what's up? Thanks for being here. Morph Master J, such a sick ass name. I fuck with that name. I really do. The homie Zach NW. Herpetological. Trap Talk Patreon member all day, every day. Damn. Villarino Reptiles. My homie Emilio. Real deal. Holyfield. The boss of the V unit. V unit. This guy is super official. So official that we're going to end this early bird shout out in style. Guys, we're already 7 minutes deep, aka 8 minutes deep. I'm just kidding. It is time to bring Tyler on. Do what you got to do to stay hydrated. Buckle up. It's going to get hot. It's going to get heavy because Tyler only wants to talk about drama tonight. I'm just kidding. That was a joke. Episode 346 coming at you right now. Tyler Rugge. Cheers. Ready for do more in the future? Trap Talk podcasts?
Yes.
Man.
Only Trap Talk. Exclusive.
Yes.
Exclusive. Oh.
So stop calling us.
Rub the spot, get the club to pop. When I come up with the crop, gotta love it or not. I'm hot from the hop to the rub the spot, get the club to pop. When I come up with the rub the spot, get the club to pop. When I come up with the rub the spot, get the club to pop. When I come up with the rub the spot, get the club to pop. When I come up with everybody, we do it. Everybody, we do it. Do it. Do it.
And we're live with Tyler. Am I saying your last name right? Tyler Rugge. Did I say that right?
Yeah, you're saying it right.
All right. What is good, Tyler? Thanks for being
Hey,
here.
how's it going? Thank you for having me on finally.
Hey, first and foremost, sick ass camera, whatever you're using. Your face is super coming in crystal clear. Wish every
Thank you.
guest had a setup like this, but what camera are you using? Can I just ask you straight off the bat?
It's a Sony A7 III.
That makes sense. Okay,
Yeah.
cool. All right. Listen, Tyler, thanks for being here. Appreciate it. How you living? How's everything going?
Everything's going good.
Yeah, you're a busy guy, man. I mean, I'm not gonna lie. Sometimes I don't want to say you're traveling a lot, but traveling is a part of what you do. I feel like, right?
Yeah, definitely. Lots of travel for sure.
Nice. How old are you?
20, almost 27. in a
Okay,
month.
so you definitely look older than what you like. No, you don't look as old as what you are for sure. You look a lot younger. So
Yeah,
I
I
have
get that a lot.
I have to, which is great. That's gonna pay off, obviously. Like I'd rather look, younger my age than older. That's for sure. But yeah,
Yeah.
you would say that nowadays you really can't put a number on age. Like people who should be acting their age don't act their age. Like it's kind of it's just a number, really.
Yeah, you can never tell, I
You
feel.
can never tell. But when did the reptile game really start becoming an importance to you, like part of your life? I'm curious.
Yeah. I mean, I always liked reptiles, but my parents weren't a huge fan, so I couldn't keep them as pets for most of my life, like when I was younger. But I
Right.
got my first gecko when I was 16. And then that just like really just got the ball rolling like immediately. Like I just wanted like a bearded dragon after that. Then I wanted to get into snakes. And it was like pretty chill for a couple years until I discovered reptile expos. And then once I went to my first reptile expo and just saw everything the hobby has to offer, it
Mhm.
was like I wanted to get a piece of everything basically. So
Wow. So 16 years old. So with that you're a junior in high school then, right? 16?
yeah, probably sophomore, junior or something like
junior?
that. Yeah.
Okay, sophomore, junior, and like what were your biggest influences? Like were you watching YouTube then? I mean, I don't know, was YouTube even popping? I guess YouTube was probably barely just picking up around then, right? I'm assuming.
Yeah, I watched a lot of YouTube, but there wasn't that much as far as animal content that was really popular back then. So I honestly didn't really watch any reptile content on YouTube.
Yeah.
I mean, it was really just like I said, I got my first gecko, and for whatever reason, it just like I really loved it. It really intrigued me, and I just loved like learning everything about the care and just everything about it. I was just like obsessed with it. So I just wanted to learn more about other reptiles. And yeah, I mean, that was basically it, honestly.
I think the good thing about the reptile industry now, it's like with how great the content is for the most part on reptiles, it's like you're almost getting sold on liking a reptile. Like it's awesome. How can you not like a reptile, right?
Right.
But think about before all this shit, like what you're talking about, what mainly influenced you was that one animal. And that's like me. Like I didn't have social. I mean, no, there was no social media. You kidding me? This is what I was 6. Well, I was 4 years old, but from what I remember, 6 years old, being on my uncle's ranch, just running around and just literally being memorized by these reptiles and these animals. And it was always something about animals. Never really got too long with every human, but animals. I just had this thing for animals. That was my influence. So it's I don't know. I always appreciate however you got into the reptile game, but for those people who got into the game just off a pet or just based off of an animal relationship, that's kind of like that's the most authentic way I feel like you could get into the game. You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely.
But that's cool. So obviously that's one thing I loved, or I wish I guess I don't want to say I wish, because let's just say I did have a lot of reptiles when I was younger. Everything would be, I guess, on my parents because they're the one paying for it technically, right? So I guess it was kind of cool that I had a taste of it, but wasn't too deep. When did it get deep for you as far as like, okay, obviously I'm not in high school no more and I still want to do this. And, obviously feeding your collection is one thing, but then obviously breeding and then just, it just goes down. So at what point were you just looking at, well, I want to add more shit. I want to bioactive stuff. Like when did you start putting money into things like on that kind of level? I'm curious.
Yeah, so it's probably when I was like, I would say maybe when I was around 20, like I couldn't have that much stuff at my parents' house because I had to keep most of the stuff in my bedroom, and I could like keep a decent amount of stuff in my bedroom at the time, but like there's definitely more of a limit. So around when I was 2021, I like moved out of my parents' house, and also I was doing social media full time. Like I didn't have a regular job I was going to anymore. So I think that first of all, like not having my parents dictate at all what I can get, like that freedom definitely helped me.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then like starting social media as my full-time job, it just like opened up a lot of free time for me especially because my content was my animals as well. So I was making content about taking care of the animals. So it's like I was doing my job, but also caring for the animals, killing two birds in one stone. So it's like I just had like so much time to do it. And I felt like I had a lot more freedom to get more animals because I had the time for it, and I felt like it was part of my job anyway. So,
Right.
yeah.
I think one of the, and I'm not to say this is an excuse for anybody, but a lot of people seem to have the excuse to say, well, I don't have enough stuff to share, or I don't have enough stuff to talk about. So they just stop, right? What was some of the stuff you did in the beginning that you felt that like kind of got the ball rolling for you content wise?
Like when I first started my channel, it wasn't even about animals really. It was just like I did it out of boredom and made random videos that were just like, I don't know, boring, honestly, probably. But the first video I made that did really well was like a meet all my pets sort of video. And at the time I had like 9 or something like that. And like, it was like a snake, a bird or a couple birds, a dog, some fish, like, and that was basically it, you know? So, and that video did really well. Like people just wanted to see more of the animals, even though I mean, that's still like more animals than your average person has at home, but like compared to now, it's not that much. And like people just wanted to see more of the animals. So I just made content with the animals that I had. Like I made videos about my birds, about my rabbit, about the couple of reptiles that I had. So I definitely didn't feel like I had to get more animals to make content about. And there's definitely a lot of people on social media whose sole focus is either one species of animal or like one animal in particular that their whole account is about, like, and they do, you know, even better than I've ever done, some of them. So I definitely don't think the numbers, it definitely like helps have more ideas for content. If you have more animals you can make content with, but I don't think it's mandatory by any means to be successful.
So, I mean, guys, please head over to Tyler's, not obviously his Instagram too, but head over to his YouTube channel. Go subscribe to his YouTube channel. We're checking this out now. And from what I see down here at popular videos, I mean, 2.3 million views. I mean, you've hit over 1 million a handful of times. But at what point, like, because I feel like the biggest problem with YouTube influencers, they're always trying to top their next video, right? And they'll do whatever they got to do to do that. And that's kind of like where I feel like that's where the problem is, right? But for you, right, like what was it that you think that kind of made you even get, was it the fact that you were talking about one particular animal that attracted that many people at once, you feel like? Is that, or is that what you're just kind of explaining, or what do you think the biggest attraction of hitting this many views are on a video? Because that's a lot of views, bro. Like I mean, anything over 1 million is like, I mean, anyone now to this day says hitting 1 million is like, that's a huge flex, you know. And we're talking 8 years ago you did this. So what do you think it was? Like, if you could really kind of pin your head around it.
It's hard to say exactly. Like, I think at first, like I said, I didn't have a ton of animals. So I think people fell in love with specific animals that I had. Like I had a sun conure named Mango, who was like a really big deal on my channel. And everyone just really loved Mango because he's just like this really silly bird that I had with me all the time. And then I had my giant rabbit Desmond. Like they were just like different animals that people just like really loved to see. And I think it kept people coming back. And then as far as having videos get a lot of views, I think the videos where I was like, you know, meet all my pets, I have like 10 or 30 or 50, like every time it's like growing. But I think just the shock factor of like, wow, this guy has so many animals, and like people just want to see them all and like see how I manage to take care of everything and stuff like that. And then like the reptile room tours or animal room tours, stuff like that always gets a lot of views. And people, I feel like, used to kind of make fun of the pet tubers because like they're like every other video is like meet all my pets or like a room tour or whatever. But like those were the videos that really got a lot of views, and I feel like spread, you know, more awareness to your channel and got people to find you easier.
Yeah. Yeah, and you know, and mind you, a lot of people do room tours, but some of them just tank. Like it's crazy how like even some room tours would be like, holy shit, this collection's actually more impressive than this one. But for whatever reason, the numbers did a lot better on this app. Like I feel like it's so kind of like, I
feel like back when I started, it was probably easier because, like I said, there weren't as many people like doing the animal content, you know. So when I started,
you kind of jumped on in the beginning stages of everything.
Yeah, like the whole like pet tube thing, like I didn't even realize it was a thing if it was when I started. So and now like there's just, it's like pretty saturated the amount of animal content there is on social media. So I think it's harder to like do that because there's just so many people putting out like check out all my animals, check out my room tour or whatever it is. Like there's just so much more content now.
When did and we don't have to get too deep into this, but when did like pet tubers, from your knowledge, pet tubers and like the breeder tubers kind of start beefing? All right. And because I gotta tell you, I only even knew about a pet tuber because he went after Barcheck. I'm a big Barcheck fan. Like, I'm not gonna lie, I've just, you know, maybe favored him a little too much, but like still, I'm a big Barcheck guy. And this was the very first time I saw someone call someone else out, right? And of course I watched it, and this kid looked really young, and I was like, who the fuck is this kid? But then I realized like it was a thing. Like there was like some pet tubers who hate breeders, like they just don't like what we do, and it's kind of like, yo, what the fuck? But then you also seem who are like just kind of like vanilla about it, like, hey, we just do our thing, you do your thing, right? But like, when did you start seeing that kind of like battle between like in the YouTube game? I'm curious because you've been there 8 years ago, so I'm curious.
Yeah, it's hard to say exactly. I mean, I definitely think like maybe a couple years after I started and when all the pet tube stuff started to really like blow up and whatever, I feel like in the last like, you know, like 10 years for sure, like especially in the reptile industry, but also like all the different pet niches, like the standards for husbandry is like getting a lot higher, and people are like, the care standards are just like changing over time. So I feel like people who keep animals as pets have really high standards for care, whereas breeders, it's just like a very different thing, because obviously breeders usually have like a large quantity of animals, and like they're breeding and they're like moving stuff out and bringing stuff in. Like they're not like holding on to things like pet owners are as much. And they're
not there like deep thinking what breeders would normally, because like we're busy, we have a lot going on. Somebody who just has a pet but they're obsessed over it are gonna probably overthink some things, but maybe also just pick up on some things that maybe not the breeders are picking up because we're just too busy. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So it's definitely like, I think there's a different standard of care for breeders. I definitely think that like it's important for people who breed animals to also like not be stuck in their ways too much. Like if some like thing comes out where it's like, oh, you should be doing this, like if it's possible to do it on a large scale, you know, but it's like, you know, it just like depends. Like it's like you can't, if you're a ball python breeder who has like 100 ball pythons, you can't keep them all in like a 4x2x2 enclosure,
right?
But like maybe like adding enrichment to whatever you're keeping them in is like an example of like, you know, kind of going towards the higher standard of care. But I think that people who keep things as pets don't see the breeding side of it, so they just like, they're just like looking at it from a different perspective. So it's just like, it's like hard for them, I think, to see eye to eye.
I see you. Yeah, because I mean, like I said, there's just two different priorities. You know, a breeder's priority is to breed, and sometimes, and like I said, there's breeders who just too much of a breeder, and it's like, yo, you know, like, and one thing I didn't realize how bad some people were in the breeding game is like they had way too much weight, and for whatever reason they didn't want to sell it. They just wanted to hold on to it because maybe they didn't think they would get the value of it, so they rather just neglect it and hold on to it. And I saw a lot of that shit, and that's what kind of made me like say, well, maybe I don't want to breed this much, you know. And I kind of like, because you know, I could see people, I could see it being okay for certain people at a certain time, and then we're talking 10 years later and shit's so thick and shit's so deep where like you're just really doing things really wrong now, but you don't even see the big picture because all you give a fuck about is getting paid or your money. And that's why I see how pet tubers have a good point, because money does fuck the whole breeding side up of things. I've seen it. There's some greedy motherfucking breeders out there, man, and they don't give a shit about the animal. I have seen it with my own eyes. So that's what made me like even like not want to be that breeder, to be like, well, fuck the pet tubers, they're just weird. No, actually, I kind of get why you guys, not you, but I'm saying in general, like why they would be upset about certain things. I will say recently though, Tyler, and this kind of was like, yo, chill out, but I don't know who the girl was. I do fuck with Kayla from Jube and Snakes, right? But she like reposted something, and it was like a girl like giving a oh my god, how dare you, because somebody took a video of their snake with a urate in the background, and it's like you can at least like clean that urate before you take a video. Like, come on, dude. Like, it's a urate first and foremost. You know what I mean? And mind you, like, when it comes to breeding, and I this is for breeders out there, I guess, but urates don't bother me. If a female has a urate in there, that male is going to want to smell that urate. I'm telling you right now. Eventually, you get clean at some point, but that's just kind of like a hack, right? So I think no matter what, Tyler, you're going to have somebody to say one thing, somebody to say the other, and that's going to be the part of humankind for the rest of we live, dude. Always have two opinions, if not more. You know what I mean? So
for sure, whatever,
man. I'm curious with you, Tyler. First and foremost, you do go to a lot of reptile shows because I've seen you at quite a bit of shows. When did shows become important to you?
So I started going to reptile shows when I found out there was one kind of local to me. Again, it was like early on when I was first kind of getting more reptiles. And when I found the one local to me, like I just started going to it every month just because it was so fun to go every month and just look at everything. And then definitely when I got more involved in like the reptile community, and like YouTube was definitely a big thing that helped me get into the community because I met so many people through YouTube and other content creators within the reptile industry. So then like, especially when I started going to NARBC, like Tinley Park, that's when I met so many people, and that show is just incredible. And I feel like just once there's like that sense of community, I just started to look forward to it every time because there were so many friends that I only saw at reptile shows. And then obviously, you know, within the past couple of years, we started vending shows, and then that became a huge part of it too, obviously, because now we vend a lot of the shows that we go to as breeders.
Anyway, think about how much it changes what you do by investing into meeting people at shows. Like it just changes everything. And honestly, kind of builds, I don't know, the community that you have around you. I mean, I always see that you got your friends around you, Tyler, when you go, and that's like what makes those shows so important. I feel like. Where are you from, Tyler? What part of the country are you from?
I'm from Michigan.
Michigan, okay. I don't know. What part of Michigan are you from?
It's Rochester. I'm literally like 15-minute drive from where Brian Barczyk is.
Oh,
the
cool.
Reptarium.
Okay. Yeah. So like, I don't know if you have a shit ton of reptile friends for where you're from. First and foremost, let's talk about your friend Maddie. Okay, shout out to Maddie. You've known her for how long now?
For like 6 years now.
So you guys go back 6 years.
Yeah.
And how'd you guys link up? What's the story behind that as far as you guys meeting and whatnot?
So it was through YouTube. Like, I guess she had seen like one of my early on videos that went viral and like subscribed to me or whatever, but then just kind of forgot about it. But then I went live on a platform that is called YouNow, which isn't really a big thing anymore, but it was like a big live streaming platform a few years ago. Right. So I went live on there, and she got a notification that I went live. And then she came to my live stream, and then we started talking back and forth in the chat. And she asked me if I wanted to see like one of her really big lizards because she had tegus at the time. She still has the tegus. She was like, "Do you want to see my tegus?" And I was like, "Sure." So then I like brought her on the live, and she showed me her lizards or whatever. And then we started talking, and then that was basically it.
And where's Maddie from?
She's from Ohio.
Ohio. Okay, yeah. That's not too far from you, but still, like, what are the odds of you and Maddie ever getting to link if it wasn't for that YouTube channel or that YouTube episode? Like, it's like the golden thing about the reptile industry, it connects you with people you would never connect with, but that only works if you put yourself out there, right? If you just kept shit to yourself, never left your basement, and didn't give a fuck about the people, you and Maddie would have never connected. But that's when people in this industry need to realize these are tools you got to use. Like, you ain't going to go nowhere in this industry without people. Like, you need, but obviously the right kind of people, right? Because I know, Tyler, I'm sure you've maybe wanted to see eye to eye with certain people, but it just doesn't happen. So you just got to pick and choose who you have to hang around with, right? But that's options. It's the beauty of life. You have options. Us humans could pick who the hell comes on in our ride and who doesn't. It's just how it works, right? So you and Maddie obviously started something 6 years ago, which is because you guys have a reptile account together, or like a page account. Can we kind of talk about that, because it led into something, and I want to talk about what it's led into and what's going on now with you two. Yeah.
So I mean, like, this was pretty recently, like within the past, it was probably like 2 or 3 years ago, we started Celestial Exotics because we decided we wanted to like get kind of serious into the whole breeding game. Cool. So that's kind of like what we started. That was our business name. And we have like the Instagram and Facebook and stuff that we run together. And yeah, I mean, that was just kind of like we started it when we decided we wanted to like breed kind of more seriously at that point.
Okay. And breeding, And this was right after you guys met, or I'm sorry, remind me how long have you guys known each other before you guys started coming up with breeding projects?
So we like first started talking like 2017, and then in 2018 we started dating and moved in together. And then in 2020 probably is when we started breeding crested geckos together in 2019, but it was very like we had 2 pairs or something. Like it was really small scale, just kind of for fun.
Okay.
But then in 2020 we started we were like, we actually want to invest in like really nice animals and like be serious about this. So then that's when we came up with Celestial Exotics.
Okay, now I'm tripping, bro. So wait, she's your girl? So you guys are together?
Yeah. You know that?
I thought you were with somebody else. Hold on. Okay.
No.
Because I was not going to lie. Okay, this makes a lot of sense. You understand that the reptile world could be weird, right? There's some people out there with some like open type relationships, right? And whatever, do your thing, but I'm good on that all day, every day. And mind you, Tyler, I don't know you that well, but I always thought back when there was, when you had some attention drawn around you with someone else who had attention drawn around, I was like, I was told that's his girlfriend, right? But then I thought Maddie was just your friend. But I was like, dude, they look like really good friends. I'm so confused. But then I was just going along because I don't ask questions. And I'm thinking, and I see you guys always like you're on a podcast together. And I'm just like, damn, Tyler has a really cool girlfriend. It's like, I'm pretty sure they got something going on. But that makes all the sense in the fucking world now. You guys are a couple.
Yes.
Together.
Yep.
Woo, that makes sense. Listen, people.
Glad we got that cleared up.
Don't listen to other people's information. People out there. Just sometimes, guys, you got bring them on the show and get to the fucking facts.
Yeah.
So cool. All right. So you and Maddie moved in together, and I gotta say, man, 2018. That's right when things were like starting to heat up in the reptile industry as far as people getting like it becoming bigger and bigger. And then obviously COVID, right? COVID happens and the floodgates. So let's kind of talk about where you guys were at when COVID happened. So 2020, how much did you guys have going on at that time? And were you guys selling animals at that time? Let's kind of talk about what your COVID years were like.
Yeah. So during COVID, I mean, we weren't really doing anything. It was definitely a big change for us because like we mentioned, like we travel a lot, like especially during the summer months. Like it's like we're going on trips like every other weekend almost. It feels, so when COVID happened, it was just so weird because it went from that to just no travel at all, like just stuck at home, not seeing anyone. And it was just like, it was kind of cool at first. I feel like everyone kind of thought it was like a vibe being at home and just like chilling, but then it got boring after a while.
Yeah.
So maybe that kind of played a part in it where we were like, let's just buy like 50 geckos and start breeding them, But yeah, so we invested in a lot of like higher quality crested geckos around that time, but a lot of the stuff we were buying were like smaller geckos that we wanted to grow out. Okay. So we weren't really selling anything at the time, or if we were, it was just like a couple geckos that we had bred previously or whatever, but we definitely didn't start selling like very much until maybe like 1 or 2 years after that, honestly.
And, I hear that about the gecko game. Like, first and foremost, it's really rare that anyone who's relevant in the gecko game will sell adults. I hear that like they don't like they hold on to those from what I've heard. Right. But I also hear that it's good to raise up your collection, just like anything else. Like it's kind of good to start with fresh stock, like baby stock, grow it from there. But like, did Maddie have a huge one up on who to get these geckos from? Or was that you? Was it both of you guys? Like, who do you guys know who to get from, like stuff from? Because I'm very picky about that, right? Like I'm very, I don't know, I don't want to say I'm snobbish, but like I only buy from people I really want to buy from, right? So how did you guys navigate that in the beginning?
So honestly, Maddie was like the main one who was like going out and looking for geckos. Like I honestly don't even know how she did it, but like, because like we were so new at it at first, and crested geckos are just like so confusing with like what do you buy, what do you pair together? Because especially back then, morphs weren't really a thing with crested geckos. Like there was like maybe lily whites back then, but that was it.
Right.
And so it's just like all these different traits and just trying to figure out like, especially as babies, as they grow up, they change so much. So it's just like, yeah, I don't even know, but she had a really good eye for what to get, especially at the time, not knowing very much. And I think she went on like Facebook groups a lot to see what people were posting, like in the crested gecko groups, and just like following people on Instagram, and like also going off of the breeders we saw at Tinley, like because we saw some breeders at Tinley, and that was like one of the things that motivated us is going to Tinley and seeing all these crested geckos that were just like so crazy looking, because we were like, we had no idea crested geckos could look like this, because we were just kind of used to what you see at like Petco, you know, where they're just like brown or something.
Right.
So yeah, we just saw these like incredible geckos, and then we were like, we want to make stuff like that. And then yeah, I mean, she was just like on like Facebook and like Instagram and stuff, and just seeing what people were posting for sale. And like, I don't even know like how she knew what to get, but she did a really good job with that for sure.
That's neat. Now,
yeah,
how did things lead into other species that you guys started keeping? Because I mean, you dabble with snakes and stuff like that, right? So when did things start leading to the next as far as projects?
So we had a lot of species before we got into breeding just as pets, and I feel like that's a big pet tuber thing, is like you have like one of like
everything. Yeah.
billion different species, you know, because you're not breeding anything. But when you're a breeder, you're kind of like, what do I want to work with? And most breeders are focusing on like a few species that then they then breed large scale, right? So we kind of like got a bunch of species where we just have like one of each thing, and then we decided we want to get into breeding, so we got into crested geckos. And then like we can't just like breed everything that we have, because that would be like insane.
Wow.
So it was just the crested geckos at first, and then just like after a while, it just like we kind of just, I mean, you can't breed everything that you want to breed, because like I want everything and I can't have everything, unfortunately. So it's just like really like trying to figure out what you're really into and really passionate about, and what is like what you're going to be excited about, you know? So I mean, we just like found a few species here and there that kind of popped up. We were like, that's really cool, especially things that aren't as common. Like there aren't a ton of people working with them, because then it feels more like worth it to try to breed it if, you know, there aren't already a billion other people making the same thing.
Yeah.
So
I mean, yeah, it's a double-edged sword, because like Tyler, like let's just say money and space wasn't an issue, right? But you're also limited hands. Like I don't know how many people other than Maddie you have helping you out, but all I have is my wife technically over here. I mean, I have other people who will come from like other places, but I don't like asking for help unless I really need some help. I'm very stubborn about it, actually. But like I literally go to like the last resort until I have to say, okay, I need help. But what I'm getting at is like when you are able to get whatever the fuck you want, it could lead to it not being as fun, you know, like, because like you said, like, you know, you go from being a pet keeper and you want it all, and you try to dial back from that, but then now you want to be a pet keeper who breeds all this shit. Oh man, it gets messy, because like your whole focus, like you should be hyper focused really on one thing, but you get spread too thin too quick. And then me, like I take failure for what it is, but I also beat myself up over it quite a bit, because I want, like, as much as I understand the process and stuff like that, when things don't make it all the way or something, I get really upset. And I don't like throw a tantrum, but inside I'm like, God damn it. Like, I just want that thing to make it. Mainly I'm talking about chondros, right? And I'm not going to get too deep into it. It's a touchy subject, Tyler, but I do understand how things could get too heavy too quick, right? And obviously, especially working with imports, because I got into the green tree python emerald game off only the import. I couldn't afford captive born and bred. I mean, very limited money wise when I first came into this, so I could only really afford shit I saw at shows, stuff I would see like on King Snake, right? But man, those imports put me in for a fucking ride, man. And I know you have a little bit of, if not a lot of it, but tell me your experience working with imported animals, or animals that were really never in the collection. It just came to you and you had to, you know, establish it.
Yeah, so I don't have a ton of experience working with imports. Obviously, I have the Abronia, and I don't remember what the first thing I got that was technically like a wild caught animal was. It was either the Abronia or I got a sunbeam snake pretty early on. And like the sunbeam snakes, when I got it, I just thought it was like the most beautiful snake ever. Obviously, you see like the videos that go viral, and it's just like this incredible looking snake, but they're really hard to keep alive in captivity, and they're like always wild caught. There's only like a couple people who have ever bred them in captivity. So, I mean, I got really lucky, I feel, because obviously I didn't really know what I was doing, and I saw sunbeam snakes at an expo in like Pennsylvania or something, and I mean, they were probably wild caught, obviously. And I knew that, but like I wanted one, so I got one, and I kind of knew what to do. Like I treated it for parasites and all that stuff. And I feel like I just got lucky. Like it lived, and it literally just died maybe like a year ago. Like I had it for like 5 or 6 years.
Wow.
So I mean, like I feel like I got lucky there. Like I really don't know what to say. And then like honestly, same thing with the Abronia. I got my pair of Abronia off of like one of those, I don't even remember where, is one of those websites where they just have like a ton of imports, and they kind of have a bad reputation with like you get them and they kind of like die if you you know what I'm saying. So I got the Abronia. I knew they were like wild caught, probably, whatever. I feel like I was kind of naive in that way, where like I just didn't know that much about the wild caught stuff and like how much of a risk it really is and all that. And I was also like, it was kind of earlier on in my like journey in the reptile world. So
it's like you're so naive because like you see such an opportunity, right? And you're like, oh, wow, this is great. And like, and then you see the price where you're like, oh, wow, I can afford that.
No, literally. Yeah.
It's a picture perfect scenario.
Yeah.
And then here's a real scenario. It arrives either not the animal that was in the picture, or it arrives with the missing eye, or it arrives with fucking foam coming out its mouth. But there's also the side of the dice where it arrives perfectly fine. You know what I mean? But it's like such a fucking roll, dude. Like, but like in the beginning, I didn't know that. I like you said, I got like how you got lucky with that one snake that kicked
the sunbeam.
Yeah. I got super lucky with the amount of green tree pythons that I got from an importer that turned out to be very good. Like they're still here. I mean, I want to say half this wall is imports, and they've been in my collection for over 6 years. But mind you, I did go through my ones that didn't make it. But man, I got really lucky. But then once things started not becoming so lucky, and then I just started seeing like, what the hell? What's happening now? It was just a bit of reality. But then I also was just like, dude, look what you have. Like it's just one big gamble. Like that's all it is. But people don't know that when they get into it. They think they're getting a good, solid deal and a really good, well-established animal. No, you're not.
Yeah.
But like, I mean, I don't know. It's like I said, it's literally gambling.
Yeah.
So, but the Abronia, man, I gotta say, I love Abronia. I would say before I even had a monitor or the tree monitors, I was, my rest in peace, Forrest Fanning. My buddy Forrest had quite an Abronia collection. Did you ever follow Forrest Zoo Dreams?
No, I don't think I've heard of them.
Yeah. So, RepTech is Cold Blooded Cafe.
Yeah.
Okay. So he owns that. He owned that company.
Oh, okay.
And he had a private collection called RepTech. But his Instagram was called Zoo Dreams. And that's, his Abronia was just nuts. He has like a really famous Abronia, like a blue Abronia Google, like it's on Google. It's like everywhere. It's like a real crazy, like popular picture. But anyways, like I was very fond of the Abronia, especially when I found out how cool you have to keep them and like just how much different they were. But then I also heard that they are like illegally brought in here really, really bad. But then I had opportunities, and I would talk to Stephen Cush, and he was like, no, man, if you get that, everyone's going to know that it's you. Like, there's no way you got that here. And I'm like, all right, I'm just going to leave this game alone. So I just stopped. But with you, like first and foremost, how much Abronia do you have right now? How big's your Abronia collection?
So I have 3 males, 2 females, and then I have 2 babies that I've produced of the Graminia, and then we also have 2 Depii. So
those are the 2 species of Abronia that you keep.
Yeah.
And there's a shit ton. Correct me if I'm wrong. Like there's a lot, right?
Yeah, there's a lot of different ones. Yeah.
And this guy Forrest, man, oh man, he had the calico stuff. Like he just had wild looking stuff. But from what you understand, establishing them, was it hit or miss? Like, did you get lucky sometimes? Did you not? I feel like my monitor scratching on something. I could hear you. Just go ahead and keep talking. I want to make sure he's
okay.
Good.
Yeah, no worries. Yeah. No, when I got my first pair, like I said, I feel like I was really lucky. Like I got them in and they seemed healthy. Again, at the time, I didn't really know very much or know what to look for. So, maybe they were like a little bit skinny or something, but I probably wouldn't be able to tell that easily back then. But I got them in, and I kind of knew that they were probably wild caught and I should probably treat them for parasites and do all that stuff. So I did all that, and I just didn't have any issues with them. And I wanted to breed them, and I knew that no one pretty much was breeding them at the time. And again, I feel like I was very naive thinking that I could like breed these lizards when I had like no experience breeding anything ever, but I was just very ambitious, I guess.
Right.
And I didn't have any success breeding them for a couple years until eventually I did, when I was like fooling around with trying different stuff. And then as far as like all the other Abronia graminia that we've gotten were like kind of rehoming situations where there were just random people that we found that had them as pets. And some of the people we've gotten them from have said that they were like captive bred or whatever, which honestly, who knows? They like, maybe they were, but they probably weren't. So, I mean, even those ones, when we got them in, some of them were like pretty unhealthy, and we did the whole routine, like treating them and getting them back to good health. And like, we haven't had any terrible failures so far, knock on wood. But yeah, the first pair I got were the first ones where it was like probably fresh from the wild. I got them. And the other ones were like other people had them, but like weren't taking wonderful care of them, but we're keeping them alive for a little while at least. So yeah.
Yeah, man. I mean, I do know that there's a big reason why Forrest went so hard on the Abronia, because that is a super slept on species to work with, I feel like. And I mean, and then it's not any, I mean, yeah, I'm sure that their bites, I know their bites, I've heard do kind of hurt, but they're not going to put you in the hospital. You know what I mean? They're just like, it's just like a, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Such a cool. And what's awesome is like, you think they're, I mean, they are small, right? But man, full grown ones are really impressive. They're like, I mean, I don't know how big the Graminia ones get, but I do know that there were certain species that Forrest had. They were like fucking big, dude. And I was like,
yeah,
oh my God, look how big those things are. And man, he had it like, man, I just can't stop thinking of it, this room he had. But you walk in and it was like the coldest room that he had. I think it was like 67 or 65 degrees in that room, man. And I'm talking aisles, Tyler, like aisles or just two wall to walls all the way down full of yeah, man. It was so impressive. And it was like, I don't know, how many reptiles rooms do you walk into and you get chilly? Like, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
the only reptile room I ever walked into, and he, you know, I think now that room that he has is Stephen Cush has like a crazy Montane rattlesnake collection in there. So it's still a cooler room because of the rattlesnake. Like it's a mountain species of rattlesnakes, which is really cool. But man, that not as cool as the Abronia, unfortunately. The Abronia was something else because, mind you, like I said, so many different species he had that had so many different colors going on. But I'm curious with you, like, let's kind of talk about what works for you as far as the diet for the Abronia. Like, what is it that you like to feed them? How often? And if we could kind of talk about how you pair them too.
Yeah. So for diet, I mean, I just try to give them as much variety as possible. Like I give them crickets, super worms, wax worms, black soldier fly larvae, hornworms, like literally just everything. I'd say probably, and dubia roaches, probably mostly like crickets and dubia roaches and like super worms, but I just kind of like rotate everything. Obviously supplement them with like calcium and throw in D3 and multivitamins. And then a big thing with them is I supplement them with Rapashi Super Pig, which is like it's like a pigment, like a beta carotene sort of supplementation, and that actually helps with their color. So like what you'll notice is like there's a lot of pictures of Abronia that are like this really like blue color, and that's actually like an unnatural color that kind of happens when they're in captivity. Because I mean, it can happen for a lot of reasons, but like not having proper exposure to UVB is one, and another is the supplementation. So I've actually seen like a lot of people where they're like, I really want an Abronia that's blue, but like that's actually like not great. So like one of the Abronia we got that was rehomed to us was like blue, and then after we started taking care of it, it turned this really like bright greenish yellow color, and that's like the natural color that you would see them in the wild with. And that's from giving them like the proper supplementation of like the Rapashi Super Pig is what a lot of people have like do for the Abronia to get them the right color. And then also like UVB is really important, obviously.
Now let's be honest about some people out there who's just getting into this or wanting to get into this, and they want to go ahead and do everything right. Like they're getting their enclosures down, the substrate, but they get to the dieting part. And I gotta say, I stand on diverse diet all day. You have to switch it up, or just keep things in a certain flow of just, you know, switching it up. But for you out there, Tyler, to recommend anyone out there like who has Abronia or just any kind of lizard species that we're talking about this diverse diet, we're geckos, right? Like what are the two most important pieces of diet that you think somebody should at least have? Because like maybe some people can't get access to everything, or they're just like whoa, that's just too much to remember. So what would you say the two pinnacle pieces of dieting that you think are important to what we're talking about here?
Like the 2 feeders.
Yeah, like the
Like-
feeder, something that you're like, well, listen, like if you can't give it all the whole range, but I feel like these are the two best.
I feel like crickets like are an obvious one just because they're pretty available to anyone. And also a lot of animals prefer you just throwing a bunch of stuff in there and them hunting it. And that's also good enrichment. But with the Abronia, some of them don't like being tongue fed, and other lizards, obviously. So they like just being able to hunt for themselves. And I think crickets are one of the easiest ones to do that with.
Yeah.
And then I'd say like my second go-to would be dubia roaches probably, but I know some places you can't have those. So then maybe I would say like superworms are another good one.
And do you, as far as insects go, do you produce any of your own insects? Like, do you work with dubia roaches or anything?
Yeah, we produce dubia roaches, cave roaches, and hissers.
Oh, wow.
Hissers and red runners. So all like roaches. I hate crickets. So I just order them and then feed them off. I don't want to try breeding them because I think they're disgusting. So yeah, just mostly roaches.
Who do you order crickets through?
Josh's Frogs.
Oh, shout out to Josh's Frogs.
Yeah, they're in Michigan too, so we can get like them shipped pretty much like the next day.
Oh, cool. That's sweet.
Yeah.
Now, what's up with the crickets that are brown crickets and black crickets? And I hear that the black crickets are more nutritional. Am I tripping, or do you know anything about that?
I don't know, honestly. I know there's different like types of crickets, like there's banded crickets and then there's some other kind, but we just do the banded crickets because they're like the standard ones, I think. But yeah, I don't know much about that, honestly.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, my pets, I just go down the street where I live and that's where I get my crickets because I don't get too many. I don't have too many, things that eat crickets here, but I like to just keep that as a supplementation. But he has brown ones and these black ones that are like big as shit. And I guess those ones. Yeah. So I don't know if you knew about that, but yeah, I mean, it's crazy too. We're talking about how people go from one end to keeping reptiles just as a pet keeper, but then getting to breeding. Well, then now when you get into breeding, well, guess what? You have to feed them. And that's why it's not always sustainable getting stuff from another person who breeds them. Like, it's also cheaper if you just breed things yourself. Right.
Yeah.
And I know dubia roaches, man. I know I should be at this point because they're expensive. If you go to a pet store over here, they kill it on dubia roaches. And I'm just like,
oh, yeah.
What the hell? It's nuts. So it almost makes sense to just breed your own.
And they're so easy to breed too. Like,
yeah. Do you have them in their own room? Where do you keep your breeding colonies at? Like, how do you do that? I'm curious.
So I actually keep my roaches and stuff in the basement, which is like the cold area, which makes absolutely no sense. But I literally wrap heat tape like around the tubs to keep them really warm. Because like one reason I do that is because I just don't want them anywhere near me. But I'm also like allergic to roaches, funny enough. So like every time I open the bin, I literally have like this huge like mask to like filter the air. Because if I don't, my lungs will like close on me.
Oh shit. That's
so yeah. I just keep them in the basement in the corner.
Okay. They're there.
Yeah.
Okay, that's cool. MorphMarket, man. Do you use MorphMarket at all? Have you?
Yeah, we use it.
Yeah. What do you think about the new MorphMarket change? Like just a whole new ownership and just where things are headed right now with MorphMarket.
It's definitely interesting. Like, I think they're making some good changes, but there's definitely a lot of changes happening very quickly, which I think is just overwhelming to a lot of people and freaking people out. So luckily, like we like have used MorphMarket for the past like maybe year or something, but I feel like we haven't been using it a ton until very recently. So it probably hasn't affected me that much because I'm just starting to get like using it a lot, So yeah, I don't know though. Like, it's just kind of crazy. I'm just like watching it from afar. I'm like, wow, everyone's getting so upset,
Well, I mean, yeah, people hate change,
Yeah.
And then also too, when Darian's doing his way, so it's kind of like, people don't understand or think, even though you own it, how can you be this way? Well, he owns it and he can. So it is what it is. But with that being said, with sales, do you feel like, because when we're talking about Tinley, you vended Tinley, correct? Like you're set up there.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And how well have animal sales been for you at shows the last couple of years? And had they competed with how you do on MorphMarket? I'm curious, but obviously you're not using MorphMarket that much, you're saying though, right? So I'm saying like, have sales been consistent for you at shows at least?
So I'd say at shows we sell pretty well with like the lower quality stuff because I feel like at shows it's mostly people coming in looking for pets and kind of like buying things on impulse, and they don't want to spend $1,000 on a gecko.
Right.
But MorphMarket's definitely a lot better for selling. We sell like cheap stuff on MorphMarket too, but a lot of the really cheap stuff we don't even bother putting on MorphMarket. So
Right.
like we definitely sell more of the high end stuff online. And then like at Tinley, obviously there's a lot of breeders at Tinley. So like this past Tinley, we sold a lot of stuff on Friday, and then Saturday, Sunday, we sold like pretty much nothing. And then like we went to Flora Fauna, which is like a new like expo thing. It was really small, but it's in New York, and it's just like a breeder conference. So it was like mostly breeders that went there, and it's like a big gecko thing.
Shout out to Brett and Gabby. I heard.
Yes.
I'm not gonna lie, I got super FOMO on missing that event. I was supposed to be at that event. I had plans.
Oh yeah.
And I didn't make it. And I saw such an amazing pieces of content from there, and it just looks so player and next level. Like, you want to talk about a designer event, like holy shit.
Yeah.
I just looked anyways, continue please. It looked
yeah,
really
no, I mean it was like such a cool event because it was like in the mountains, like in New York, in the middle of nowhere. It was like, it felt like I was at summer camp, but just gecko breeders, you know, so it was really cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, we did pretty good selling like higher end stuff there as well, even though it wasn't as big of a crowd as like Tinley. I feel like shows at like Tinley, it's like a lot of people just coming to look and stuff. But
I mean, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but
no worries.
Think about people who would want to look at your table, but it's so fucking packed that they're just like, well, I'm just gonna keep walking. And that's what I feel like. I'm not just Tinley, but almost any show sometimes. And that's why it's important. If you really want to see what's there, get there early as fuck. Like, get there before anyone gets there. But if you try to do it during a time where it's packed, some people just don't want to deal with being around that many people. Anyways, continue. Sorry.
Yeah, no, with Tinley, like the VIP on Friday is like the way to go all the way, especially if you want to get nice stuff. All the really good stuff goes on Friday.
Setup day, bro. You know, Friday. Like, I'm talking about like, well, yeah, that's what VIP day is. I'm sorry. You're right.
Yeah.
Friday setup day. Yeah. I will never. I mean, first and foremost, I try to, me personally, snake wise, conjure wise, I don't ever look to buy anything of that at a show, right? But you also never know. Okay. So, and I always say that you never know. So I want to make sure if I do know, it's right when all the vendors had just set up, and that's when I go woo, and I go see, and I'm like, okay,
yeah,
get first dibs on everything. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I'm standing at tables while people are like putting cups down, and I'm like looking at them as they're going on the table.
What's that?
Yeah.
Oh man, that's I'm telling you, it's good piece of advice out there.
Yeah.
Now and this is gonna be a wrap-up question before we get into some hot seat questions. Okay, Tyler.
Okay.
Bioactive, like, how much stuff is bioactive in your collection? Like, how much stuff is like what's behind you, like potho plants and nice stuff growing in it, that type of stuff?
Yeah, I mean, pretty much everything is bioactive. We have some enclosures that we do paper towel and like a lay box for our females. We also have some females that are in bioactive that are like kind of simple, so we can easily dig through it. But it's definitely easier to just have a lay box and paper towel, so they just have the one spot to lay. And then with like hatchling geckos, we put them on paper towel as soon as they hatch. And then after they're like a little bit established, we'll put them in a tub with like a bioactive substrate in it. But most of the stuff is bioactive just because, in my opinion, it's so much easier.
Do you have any snakes that are bioactive in your?
Yeah, all our snakes.
And how many snakes do you have?
I have no idea. Like around 30 is my guess. We have a lot of snakes.
You have around 30 snakes in bioactive setups.
Yeah.
Wow, that's impressive.
There's maybe like two-ish that aren't, just because we got them pretty recently, so they're kind of going through like a quarantine phase. But yeah, like pretty much everything is bioactive.
That is neat. That's like some Reptarium type shit. But I got to ask you, man, what's a protocol, right? And I'm knocking on wood for you here, buddy. Well, let's just say you guys wake up and there's mites in one of those enclosures. What's the protocol for that? Like if it's just like, what the fuck? We have mites in this enclosure, and we're talking snakes here. Okay, let's kind of talk about snakes. What's a protocol for you guys for that?
So, like, normally, like I said, we bring things in, we quarantine them and keep them as far away from everything as possible. It kind of depends who we get it from too. Like if we trust someone, we might have a slightly more lax quarantine. But typically it's like we want to keep it like literally like as far away from all our animals as possible for like, depending, sometimes we keep things in quarantine for like 2 or 3 months just to make sure there's no mites or anything. So I had an issue with mites one time, and it was luckily back when I lived with my parents and I didn't have a ton of reptiles, but I got mites on like a blue tongue skink that I had. And then it spread to all the other stuff I had on the rack. And I had to treat everything for mites with like the natural chemistry reptile spray. And then there was like a prevent a mite spray that you could spray on the substrate and everything, like all over the enclosure. So I did that. And I just did that like a couple times. Then the mites went away for me, luckily. But yeah, like if it were to happen now, I mean, it would just absolutely suck. I mean, we would have to like, I don't even know. We'd probably have to like throw away all the dirt and like just like bake everything, you know?
That's what I'm saying. Like there's certain steps that like you're talking about quarantine before going into a bioactive. You can't skip that quarantine step. You can't. Because based off what my knowledge and trust me, man, like I've had to deal with mites quite a bit because of my beginning stages of just getting shit in. And I'm just like, oh my God, you know what I mean? And my quarantine practices weren't as deep as they are now. Like, I mean, not that I really have to quarantine much now because it's pretty much my collection for the most part is closed off. But when I do quarantine something, it's like it's like isolated for like 3 months. You know what I mean? And it's super just like limited. Like it's like paper and water. That's all it has. You know what I mean? But I do know, like, if I were to put that animal into a setup like what's behind you, and I wake up the next day and that snake has mites on it, that whole enclosure's done. I'm gutting that whole fucking enclosure, and it's done. And I just want people out there who are getting into this now, who are doing stuff bioactive, and think, oh wow, that snake has mites. How do you treat it? Okay, I treated it, and we put it right back in there. No, that's not how that works. You need to start from scratch. Okay. And if you had to start from scratch for 30 goddamn tanks, like you're gonna have a busy month. But like that's like, you know, that obviously that's like a red flag, like warning, like that's why you need quarantine practices. That's why you have to do that. And that's why I gotta say I'm impressed that you have 30 snakes in a bio. I mean, obviously for the geckos and stuff too, but I feel like that's kind of a given in that community. Like everyone does bioactive, not everyone, but for the most part, bioactive is not really frowned upon, where you do have people in the snake game who frown upon full-blown bioactives, but that's because a lot of motherfuckers deal with mites. If you're not dealing with mites and you have all that shit taken care of, bioactive it up, player, if that's what you want to do. You know what I mean? But I'm just saying, be ready. Like that's not easy to do, Tyler. Have 30 goddamn snakes in a bioactive, like your shit must be super dialed in. So I'm impressed. That's cool. I like that.
Yeah, it would be more of a risk too if we were bringing in snakes a lot and breeding them and doing all that. But luckily with the snakes,
it's not.
Like, we're not bringing.
There's no cross contaminating of anything. You know what I mean?
Not as much because we're not usually bringing in like new snakes all the time. It's mostly geckos. So
Well, that was cool. I think that was like the coolest. I mean, this whole podcast was cool, but that right there made like that was kudos to you, Tyler. That's sick. 30 fucking snakes in a bioactive setup. And that's for going for how long now?
I mean, I've always kept snakes in bioactive, except for maybe when I first got into it. But I mean, like, obviously I spot clean the poops because I can't just have like a giant like boa poop and rely on isopods to eat it, you know?
Yeah.
So it's still like spot cleaning. Some snakes can't have plants, like my ball pythons. They have like a couple plants, but they like crush them and stuff, you know? So like I try to do as much bioactive as possible, but there's still definitely like spot cleaning, and like some animals I will just replace all the substrate every once in a while or whatever. But yeah, I just like find it a lot easier just overall. Of course, like if you have mites, it's not easier, but hopefully that doesn't happen.
Okay, this is super random, but this is like a bonus question going into the hot seat questions because I have to know. My biggest pain in the ass, Tyler, is cleaning my lace monitors. Okay, they fucking shit like no other, and it gets to the point where I feel like I need a pressure washer to take care of some of the stuff. Right? It gets gnarly. Yeah. Someone recommended isopods in their enclosure. With that, I mean, they shit pretty gnarly. Would isopods take care of that if I put enough, or is that even worth trying? I'm curious. I have to ask you about that.
I mean, I don't like if they're like smearing poop everywhere. The isopods aren't gonna like clean it off of the wall for you. You know, like
they don't climb on the walls and like lick all that shit off.
Yeah, unfortunately, no. Maybe we'll discover like a species that does that cleans the glass, but not yet.
Well, they do. They're called bottom feeders in the ball python community, but I mean, they're not good climbers, so we'll just have to we'll have to leave them at the bottom. But okay, that was great. All right, hot seat questions before I let you go, Tyler. This has been a great episode, but not done just yet. You got these hot seat questions. Are you ready?
Okay. Yeah.
All right, guys. If you haven't already, please get the likes up for Tyler for this podcast. This has been a great show, and we're gonna end this in style as always with the hot seat questions coming in hot. Tyler Rugge, you ready?
Yes.
Here we go. Frozen thought or live?
Frozen thought.
Favorite insect to feed your geckos?
Crickets.
A cut or no cut? Meaning, would you ever cut an egg or will you never cut an egg?
Yeah, I would. We've cut gecko eggs.
On what day?
So if we have like they lay like clutches of 2 eggs, so if one egg hatches and the other egg goes a few days after the first one hatch, like we might cut it, especially if it starts to sag a little bit or look like it's not doing as well. And then if we have like a 1 egg clutch, then if it starts to look like it's failing or denting in, we'll cut it. Or like typically our eggs go, I would say around 100, 110 days. But I'd say if it like went far over that, like 130, 140, we might cut it. Just kind of depends. Cause you know, we've had times where it's like, we don't cut the egg and then it ends up dying and it's perfectly formed inside. And it's like, crap, maybe I should have, you know? So it's, yeah.
So can you just give me the day one more time?
The day?
Yeah. That was a long answer, buddy, but I didn't. I'm trying. What day was that? 100 what? I'm sorry.
Like I said, our eggs typically go like 100, 110. It just depends because there's such a big range. So I would say like if it got pushed like 130 or something, we might.
It's just one of those hot seat questions where it's like you could just keep going and going. It's
yeah,
I laugh.
Yeah, it's just like hard because crusty gecko eggs can literally go from like 90 to like 150 days. Like you just don't know, but yeah, just play it by ear.
Red chondro neo or yellow chondro neo?
What was that?
Red chondro, so red green tree python baby or yellow green tree python baby?
Oh, red.
Pre first shed meal or post first shed meal on a snake? If you were to pick.
I mean, I don't know, like, because I don't breed snakes, but I'm just going to say post.
Okay. Good one. That was great. Yay imports or boo imports?
Yay imports.
One reptile you would import anywhere around the world to your collection right now, what would it be?
If I could, a Fiji banded iguana.
Respect. What about one reptile that should not be touched or messed with? Leave it where it's from. Leave it alone. Period.
Honestly, right now I would say a Bronia.
To mist or spray your geckos or to never mist and spray your geckos?
Mist and spray.
Yay sports or boo sports?
Boo sports.
Big flexor or no flexor?
No flexor.
Come on, Tyler. You flex, buddy. I'm just
What do I flex?
I don't know.
I flex geckos, I guess.
That's what I'm saying. That's a flex, buddy. I would consider that as a big flex.
Okay, well then I guess I'm a flexor. What can I say? I have to show off my geckos.
Steak or fish?
I'll go with fish.
Favorite genre of music?
Pop punk.
Book reader or not a book reader?
Book reader if I had time.
We talking audio or we talking the actual book?
Actual book.
Respect. West Coast rap or East Coast rap?
I don't think I have a preference. I don't know.
You had to pick. Let's just say like you had to. Like let's just say it's a law or something. Like you can't even go outside until you tell me. What would it
I
be?
guess I'll just say East.
Okay,
I'm closer to the East.
Okay, little word association. First thing to come to mind: milk.
Cow.
Substrate.
Bioactive.
Regret.
I don't know.
No regrets.
Yeah, hashtag no regrets. That's the first thing.
Stuck shed.
Missed.
FedEx shipping.
Hub.
First time pet tuber.
First time pet tuber?
Hmm?
Tyler Rugge.
Bro, you're 8 years in the game. You're not a first timer at all, bro.
I
Come
was.
on. You were. That's facts. Instagram trolls.
Blocked.
If you had to pick one show that you have not gone to yet, reptile show, like actual physical reptile show, what would be the one show you would be dying to go to?
Maybe the Super Show.
You've never been to a super show? I could have sworn I've seen you at a super show.
Nope,
Tyler,
never been to
get
one.
your ass to the super show, buddy.
Yeah, I've never been there.
Dude, I thought, because aren't you cool with Mason?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, because I'm surprised you've never been. I could have sworn I've seen you at a super show. What do I got? What do I got to do to get you at a reptile super show?
I don't know. Fly me out there.
Okay, well, I would love to see you at a reptile super show. But honestly, man, that's it. That's a wrap. You killed those hot seat questions. I want to say we just had shy of 60 people tapped in on tonight's show. So what do you have to say to everyone out there tapping in who enjoyed this show, but everyone out there rooting for you, Tyler?
Just thank you. Thank you so much for all the support. And yeah, I mean, thank you for tuning in. Thank you for watching. And yeah.
And for anyone to be on top of what you have going on production-wise or whatever, if anyone out there curious, like, whoa, what does Tyler have going on as far as availability? What's the best way for people to be on top of all that?
Probably to follow us on Instagram, which is at Celestial Exotics. That's our breeding page. And also just keep up with our MorphMarket page, which is also Celestial Exotics.
Cool. And that's right there under your name. I'll make sure I have those two links in the description below. But that's a wrap, Tyler. Thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your night, but let's give it up for Tyler Rugge, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. It was a good time.
Really was. Can you tell your girlfriend to come on my show next?
Yes, I'll try my best.
All right. All right. Listen, enjoy the rest of your night, Tyler. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you. Bye.
All right. Guys, thank you so much for this episode. It was a good time. Really great time catching up and getting to know Tyler more. Really impressed with the 30 snakes in a bioactive setup. But guys, drop a comment. Let me know what you like best of tonight's show. I want any short tail python, blood python, lover, keeper, admirer to be ready for this week, because coming correct, man. It's been a while, and I know there's so many, especially my Patreon members, so many of you guys have been begging me for a short tail python and a blood python episode, and I'm going to give you guys a goddamn finale, not a finale, but it's going down this week for all that, all right? And we're going to start off with my boy, 702 Serpents, this Monday, tomorrow, new Breed on the Block series, my boy Dominic from Las Vegas. Again, 702 Serpents. This is going to be a great warm-up for our main guest this Thursday night, which is the great and powerful Rich Crowley of Rich Crowley Reptiles. This guy is super heavy in the game, mad respected, and I had the pleasure of meeting him at Tinley in March, and it was a great time, man. Rolled up to him at the bar, we chatted, and we're going to chat some more. So, again, if you enjoyed what you heard tonight, hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell. That way you're on top of every single piece of content I drop here on this channel. If you're looking for exclusive content, if you want to get more behind the scenes of Trap Talk Reptile Podcast, if you want to meet the trappers, if you just really want to go full send into this reptile industry, well, the best thing you can do on going full send for sure is going down to the description below, click the very first link in the description, and join the Trap Talk Patreon family. As soon as you join the Patreon family, you get a link to the Discord. Taps you in with over 165 trappers. Guys, again, give me a follow on Instagram, Trap Talk God 619. Follow the Facebook page, Trap Talk Reptile Podcast. I appreciate all the love and support. I really, really do. And I will see you guys tomorrow night. Tyler, all of Tyler's homies, Maddie, you guys are amazing. Thank you for being here for your boy. But we're closing it out. 346 in the books. I'll see you guys tomorrow in the mouth. Cheers.